repertoire from the composers of today and tomorrow, which absolutely takes advantage of everything from like a bank of Moog synthesizers through to drum pad technology through to, most importantly, all the assistive technology that's out there. We're living in a world now that, thanks to technology, there is no longer a barrier to any person with any kind of impairment making music to the very highest level, should they so wish. And the orchestras should be at the forefront of this. They must.
I know that technology has changed things massively for disabled people. So, for example, the smartphone means that for the first time, deaf people can use a mobile telephone, any kind of telephone. Kind of technologies are changing the world for disabled musicians.
Most excitingly right now, we are just in the process of test driving an incredible new device called a haptic conductor's baton, which of course the conductor waves around and it sends signals via Bluetooth to sensors placed on the body of a visually impaired musician. So for the first time, that musician can feel the beat and feel the space in between the beat. So suddenly it's absolutely possible for visually impaired musicians to genuinely play a front row part in any symphony orchestra.
I know that you have said that disabled musicians have something extra to add to the world of music that could really change the music that people play and listen to. Why do you say that?
Well, it's so interesting, when people talk about disability and the non-disabled world, there's an assumption it's a one-way street, that disabled people are doing all they can to join the able-bodied world. Now, of course, that's largely true because, by and large, we do live in an able-bodied world. However, my experiences tell me that it's very much more of a two-way street. The example I would give is that when I was beginning the Power Orchestra back in 2011, 2012, one of the first things I did with the first four musicians of the group was we sat down together and we decided we would improvise, which is something I like to do wherever I am in the world. I always want to improvise with people. Now, whoever you're with and whatever the scenario, when you sit down to improvise, it's always the same result, which is there's a terrible, pregnant, itchy silence because no one wants to be the first person to throw their hat in the ring. They're all a bit nervous. Am I going to look a bit foolish? I'm going to wait to see what someone else does. Everyone's like sitting on their hands for what seems like hours. Now, that whole process with these first four musicians of the British Power Orchestra took approximately 5 minutes. If you use a wheelchair, if you don't have sight, if you don't have hearing, you don't sweat the small stuff. You just don't have the same petty issues of ego which so completely surmount and obsess the rest of us.
Do you think it's necessary to make a feature of somebody's disability? There must be people, mustn't there, who just want to be integrated. They want to be part of something that is really of a high standard, judged on their own merits.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, and I should hope that there will come a time when the British Power Orchestra will be a completely obsolete idea. But until all orchestras and concert halls and conservatoires and musical institutions around the world, until they have an environment that can embrace everybody, impairment or not, then we still need to shine a light on the issue.
The conductor, Charles Hazelwood. Local councils have started charging for all kinds of things that used to be free. Garden rubbish, for example, and now building waste from household DIY projects. More than half the councils in England have recently started charging people who bring rubble, plasterboard and even old furniture to tips. People who are unhappy about that say that councils are in breach of their legal duty to dispose of household waste free and that it will just lead to more fly tipping. Claire Worden has been to the latest place to start Pay As You Throw.
Last week on the alleyway at the back here, I had 3 mattresses, wardrobe and 2 bedroom chests, all smashed up, chucked down the alleyway.
Peter Edge is the landlord of a pub in North Horsham in Norfolk, and he's fed up with the rubbish which is being fly-tipped around his land. It's less a beer garden, more of a dump.
So we've just come outside the pub and these are the commercial waste bins and they've put all sorts, so it's mattresses, bed frames and wood. That must be really frustrating.
It is, yeah.
It's been a problem for the 8 years he's been here, but now he's worried it's going to get even worse, as the county council has just started charging people to get rid of rubbish from DIY work. Peter thinks rather than pay, people will just tip their waste wherever they can.
A chap came in the other day with 2 bags, he wanted 10 quid. No, it's just silly. All they're doing is pushing the figures around. The environmental health, what's it going to cost them?
So I'm here at Ketteringham Recycling Centre, which is just outside of Norwich, and in front of me are lots and lots of bins for cardboard, for green waste, and all sorts of things that they can help you recycle. There's a metal area, and behind me, things like plasterboard and rubble, and these are the things that now... £280,000 saving from this, and that's from people paying for waste that they previously would have thrown away free of charge. We don't want to see extra fly tipping. It's something we'll be monitoring carefully. But what we have been able to do is speak to other authorities who have introduced similar policies, and what they've actually found is it doesn't actually impact on the fly tipping around the county. Fly tipping is illegal dumping of waste, and most people don't do that.
Councils have a duty to collect household waste free of charge, but it's not clear if that includes rubbish created by home improvement projects. The government is reviewing its waste disposal policy and is aiming to clarify if DIY rubbish should be free to dispose of or not. But some councils have already decided. Derbyshire County Council did a U-turn last year and scrapped its charges for DIY waste. Conservative councillor Simon Spencer explains.
They were very unpopular on the doorstep. It's very difficult to measure, but my group believed that there was a possible impact on fly tipping by the implementation of charges.
Was there evidence that fly tipping incidents went up? The local government association says there isn't any.
I think that's fair to say. There is no solid evidence to suggest that fly tipping will go up. But what we have to do is make a judgment call. There is no facts and figures to suggest that that was the right decision. But I do genuinely believe that by removing those charges, we did actually reduce the risk of increased fly tipping across Derbyshire.
Will other councils be forced to follow? That depends on the outcome of the government review. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs plans to publish its new guidance shortly.
That was Claire Worden reporting. A company called Auto Trail is the biggest dedicated manufacturer of motorhomes in the UK. It makes high-spec luxury tourers, and the prices range from £42,000 to £86,000. But You and Yours has been contacted by several listeners complaining about faults on their Auto Trail motorhomes. They've told us about poor build quality, typically leaks allowing water in, pipes not allowing water to flush away, and faulty doors and other fittings. There's even a Facebook group called Auto Trail Unhappy Owners Group. It has more than 250 members. Our reporter Bob Walker has been to meet Barbara and Jeff in Staffordshire to hear about the problems they've had with their motorhome.
This is an Auto Trail Mohawk. We purchased it brand new in 2015 and it was £58,000. Initially, one of the main problems has been the bathroom door. We're now on the third bathroom door.
What was the problem with it?
There's a strip that covers that space. It's a seal, and that strip has been put on so tight or doesn't fit properly, and it's been pulling holes in the door and coming off and loose. So they've had to replace not just the strip but the door.
One of the main issues with Auto Trail, I think, is the damp that creeps in between the outside skin and the interior of it into the insulation or whatever. If it's over 20%, well then that's an issue that needs addressing. And ours, the one reading was 70%.
From what we know and what we've read, it seems that ingress can be a problem with any manufacturer of motorhomes. You don't actually know you've got it unless you leave it and it starts to get mould and it starts to turn black inside. But while there's water in, they've got a wooden frame inside and it's damaging that, so it can be quite serious. And if it's not under warranty, it can cost thousands to put it right.
As we can hear, it's raining now. Is that an issue as well?
Well, it is at the moment, because we were away a few days ago in York and we found water in the upper lockers that's now coming in through the roof. We don't know where it's coming in and it's just getting worse and worse.
Boiler wouldn't work on gas. If you're wild camping where you're not hooked up to the mains, this is a problem because you've just got no hot water.
And no way of cooking either if you've only got gas. Obviously the electrics, when you're not hooked up, you use your gas, your cooker. And we were away on one situation where we'd taken all the food to put in the oven, the gas wouldn't work, so we had to come home.
Holiday room.
Holiday rooms, we've had 2 or 3 holidays rooms where we've had to come back.
We'd been to the beach and we wanted to wash the dogs off, and just red hot water came out. The mixer valve had broken on that. It's just loads of little things, all things that take the edge or spoil your holiday.
Can I just say that we're now on number 22 of issues. parts dropping off, cupboards not fastening, doors coming open, lots of little niggling things that really, when you spent almost £60,000 on a motorhome, you don't expect to get. It's just been appalling.
Well, we invited Auto Trail to come on the programme. They weren't able to come on, but they told us they have thousands of owners who are really happy with their vehicles in the UK, in New Zealand, in Australia. They comply with all the European standards, and these are monitored by the industry's trade body, the National Caravanning Council. They also provide a comprehensive warranty. They say they pride themselves in being an open and transparent company, but they're in the hands of their dealer network to look after warranty issues. Andrew Jenkinson is a caravanning journalist, and he tests motorhomes and holiday homes. Andrew, welcome to you and yours. These motorhomes, they're becoming more popular, aren't they?
They certainly are, and that's because people see them as an ideal way of discovering the UK, and of course on the continent as well, because of the freedom factor, and you're pretty much very self-contained, and so you can have your motorhome loaded up with your water, your water tank, etc., all your food supplies, and basically just drive away. It's so carefree.
I think registrations of them doubled up to in the 5 years to 2017.
Yes, things. The popularity is immense, because also there's an ever-growing and increasing amount of choices on the market, which obviously feeds this extra interest in motorhome purchase.
Now, do people often have problems with these motorhomes in general?
Well, it's like anything you buy new. I mean, cars these days are far better than what they were 20, 30 years ago. But that's mainly down to the fact is that a lot of the cars manufacturers now obviously use computer aided robots, etc., and they'll keep doing the same thing constantly to a very high tolerance. What we do tend to forget, or what people do tend to forget when they buy a motorhome, is it's still very much a manual labour job. So you're depending on that chap who comes in that morning and he seals it in the right place, and water doesn't get into the back or the side of the motor.
Are you surprised to hear these complaints about Autorail? Because they do have long warranties, 5 years for the interiors, 10 years for the body and construction, but you don't expect to pay such a lot and then have to keep going back to the dealer, do you?
Well, no, you don't. And as that lady said, niggling faults. And yes, these niggling faults do happen and they do occur. I think also what you do find, I've owned quite a lot of new caravans, and obviously I've tested them, is that there are little niggly faults, but I myself tend to put little bits of things right. Now, okay, you may argue you shouldn't be able to do that, but the problem's solved. Some people can be a little bit over tetchy regarding.
Well, they're so expensive, I suppose.
Oh yes, they are. Yes, I agree. I agree on that. But sometimes things do work loose over a little bit of time, and we've got to tighten our bits and pieces up. But yes, you're absolutely correct. Things shouldn't be going wrong as they do.
Andrew, we're going to have to stop you. Thanks, Andrew Jenkinson. A report into allegations of abuse at an NHS psychiatric ward in North Wales has just been published this morning. The Towel Van ward at Adlet Psychiatric Unit at Clwyd Hospital in Denbighshire was closed in December 2013 after claims that vulnerable patients, including elderly people with dementia, were left to lie naked on the floor. Others, it was claimed, were lying in urine-soaked sheets or wandering unsupervised. The initial investigation suggested it wasn't just a case of a few bad apples, it was institutional abuse. And yet in 2015, North Wales Police and the Crown Prosecution Service said there'd been no criminal prosecutions. Today's report is the result of a much broader investigation by the Health and Social Care Advisory Service. BBC's reporter Mark Hutchins has seen that report, and he told me what it says.
It's not exactly a clean bill of health, but it certainly paints a very different picture from the one you set out there. It's been 2.5 years in the making. The previous inquiry looked at the cases of 18 patients. This has been much wider. It's looked at 108 former psychiatric patients at the Towel Van ward. And the report authors say that some families, they acknowledge, stated that they thought the ward was an abusive environment where their loved ones were mistreated, neglected and came to harm. They say other families offered the view that the care and treatment their loved ones received was of a very good standard. And in fact, the findings of this inquiry, they conclude that there was good overall general care at Tower Van. So a very different finding from the previous inquiry. A short time ago, we had this statement from the report's chief executive, the author of the report, Dr. Andrula Johnston.
The investigation panel concludes that while on occasions care and treatment across the pathway was compromised, the standards of care on Tower Van ward were of a good overall general standard, and that there is no evidence to support earlier findings that patients suffered from deliberate abuse or willful neglect, or that the system failed to deliver care and treatment in a manner that could be determined to meet the threshold for institutional abuse. It is essential that this conclusion is made in the clearest and most unambiguous of terms in order to restore public confidence. Failings in care cannot automatically be equated to abuse.
Mark, how did these original complaints about this ward come about in the first place?
Well, various families brought forward their concerns about the ill treatment they said that their loved ones had been receiving. They gathered a certain amount of pace, and then the ward was suddenly closed down, with the health board saying back in 2013 that the allegations were deeply distressing. Now we have today's report, which comes up with a rather different portrayal of what went on at Tower Van. In fact, a short time ago at the briefing, one family member who was there said that this report was in fact a whitewash, and we will be hearing a little later from families who are being given their own reports, and sometime later they'll get individual ones about their own cases. We have spoken to the family of Joyce Tecati. Now, she was treated on the Tower Van ward, and here are the thoughts of her son Philip.
There was always a strange atmosphere, but you keep your thoughts to yourself. You know, you try and override those with she's getting the best care possible. However, the dark thoughts did creep in, and at times I did think this wasn't a nice place. There was no guidance, there was nobody around. It was chaos. There were people outside with underpants on their head running around naked. It was awful. We've been grieving for 6 years. That grieving process has continued. We haven't been allowed to grieve. We want answers. We haven't had answers. I think the worst thing is we feel as if we let her down.
Mark, that ward was closed in 2013. Where are patients like Philip's mother cared for now?
Well, they've had to go to the Bryn Hesketh ward in Colwyn Bay, and there has been a general reorganisation of healthcare. These new refurbished wards are meant to be more dementia friendly, and Tower Van itself has never reopened. In fact, there are suggestions that it may actually be demolished as part of a general reorganisation of healthcare in the area. Now, Tower Van is actually Welsh for peaceful place. There are clearly some families who think it was anything but. It is evident, I think, that whatever the findings of this report, that the arguments about it will continue for some time. In fact, there's going to be another report as a follow-up to the Ockenden report that is due out in a few months' time.
That was the BBC reporter Mark Hutchins. That's it for today. We've had lots and lots of emails and tweets about auto-renewal and the misery of being caught out by that. This one sums them up. All auto-renewals should be opt-in. This is a tweet, not opt-out. I paid for broadband up front for a year. I clarified it would end in a year and was told it would, but it auto-renewed at the non-discounted rate and I didn't get my money back. It'll be Peter White here, same time tomorrow, 12:15.
You and Yours was presented by Winifred Robinson. It was produced by Jonathan Halliwell. Sarah Montague brings us The World at 1 in a few minutes, and then the influence of Bruce Lee is explored in Chinese characters at 1:45. Now, though, the latest weather forecast. Here's Chris Fawkes.
Thanks a lot, Jane, and we've got lots of dry weather to come through the rest of this week and on into the bank holiday weekend, with the weather gradually turning a bit warmer as well as we go through the next few days. Looking at the weather picture this afternoon, we've got weak weather fronts across northwestern areas threatening outbreaks of rain, but otherwise a lot of dry weather to come through the rest of this afternoon. So, across southern counties of England, the south and east Midlands, southeast England, eastern England and the northeast of England as well, it's going to stay largely dry with some sunny spells. Quite a bit of high cloud in the sky, making the sunshine hazy, and a little bit of cloud has bubbled up beneath that as well. So it is spells of sunshine, but as we go on through towards the evening time, I think increasingly we should see a little bit more sunshine breaking through. Temperatures between 14 and 18 degrees Celsius. Not feeling too bad if you're out and about with light winds this afternoon. Across Wales, the northwest Midlands and northwest England too, we are going to have quite a lot of thick cloud here over the next few hours, and I think we may well see a few spots of rain falling from the cloud across these areas too. The rain though should fizzle out with time, and again we could see the skies brighten up later in the day. Temperatures 14 degrees here. Now the weather picture for Northern Ireland, well, it's been a wet morning with some wet weather, with outbreaks of rain, but that rain is easing away. So I think as we go on through the afternoon, the skies will try to brighten up, but often I think quite a lot of cloud. Temperatures 11 degrees Celsius for a high in Belfast. And finally, the forecast for Scotland, whereas across northern and western areas today, the cloud's going to be thick enough to bring outbreaks of rain through the afternoon. A few heavy bursts around at times, but across eastern areas of Scotland, it should stay dry and bright. Temperatures between 11 and 14 degrees this afternoon. Overnight.
via democratic means. Many, including the Spanish government, will see this communique as mere propaganda and an admission of failure. After the death of the dictator Franco, ETA's campaign of assassinations and bombings yielded no tangible results. But that violence scarred the Spanish and Basque people and their politics.
Donald Trump has said that his lawyer Michael Cohen did not use presidential campaign funds to pay the porn star Stormy Daniels to stop talking about an alleged affair. In a series of tweets, he said the payment was part of a contract designed to prevent her making accusations. Mr. Trump had previously said he did not know about the payment. A new investigation into the care of more than 100 dementia patients on a mental health ward in North Wales has contradicted an earlier inquiry, concluding that there was no institutional abuse. An earlier report suggested conditions on the ward at Glenclwyd Hospital were like visiting a zoo. One family member said they didn't trust the latest findings. From Brill, our correspondent Thomas Morgan reports.
Independent health consultants were brought in to investigate after a report in 2015 had made serious claims of mistreatment at the Tawel Van ward at Glenclwyd Hospital. Their investigation has concluded that there was no evidence to support prior allegations that patients suffered from deliberate abuse or willful neglect. It is damning of how previous reviews had taken evidence that was incomplete, misinterpreted, taken out of context and based on inaccuracies, saying that care on the unit was generally of a good overall standard. But it does suggest there were problems across a range of services and that weak governance at the health board prevented a robust approach to patient safety. Some families have reacted scathingly to this inquiry's conclusions, saying that they feel let down with what they consider to be a whitewash.
Public Health England says there have been 5,000 calls to a helpline set up yesterday after it emerged that an NHS computer error had led to almost 500,000 women in England missing their final routine screening. The error, dating back to 2009, affected women ages between 68 and 71. Downing Street says it's confident a solution can be reached on Britain's customs arrangements with the EU after Brexit. The Prime Minister's spokesman said the two proposals under consideration were being refined. Yesterday, a meeting of senior cabinet ministers failed to reach an agreement on either option, both of which EU officials have expressed scepticism about. Our political correspondent Ben Wright reports.
The Prime Minister's spokesman denied the absence of a single customs proposal was harming the UK's negotiating position. The two options set out by the government last summer, one reliant on technology, the other a customs partnership that would mean the UK collecting tariffs on behalf of the EU, are still being refined, the spokesman said. Tory Brexiteers have strongly objected to the idea of a customs partnership, and a majority of ministers on the committee spoke out against the plan yesterday. But in the Commons, the Brexit Secretary David Davis insisted both options had merits and virtues, and said the government was taking its time to get it right. Downing Street refused to speculate on how long it would take for the government to make a decision, but time is running short. EU leaders have said they want to see meaningful progress on how to resolve the Irish border question at a summit next month.
Polling is underway in the local elections in England. More than 4,000 seats are being contested in 150 councils, including all 32 London boroughs. A by-election is also being held in the parliamentary seat of West Tyrone in Northern Ireland. The poll was called after the resignation of Sinn Féin's Barry McElduff in January. The government has intervened in the free speech row at universities and is planning to issue new guidance on the subject. The university's minister, Sam Gyimeh, who's holding talks with university and student leaders, has described attempts to silence debate as chilling. 4 celebrities have settled their phone hacking claims with Mirror Group newspapers, which also publishes the Sunday People. They received undisclosed damages and an apology for the unlawful interception of their voicemail messages more than 10 years ago. Clive Coleman reports from the High Court.
Lawyers for Mirror Group newspapers and the claimants read statements in open court marking the end of cases brought by the actress and model Danielle Lloyd, former Manchester United footballers Andrew Cole and Dwight York, and actress Jennifer Ellison. MGN acknowledged it targeted the voicemails and hired private investigators to obtain private information. MGN apologised in each case and paid damages and legal costs. In February, its executives admitted that they had actively turned a blind eye to a widespread culture of unlawful information gathering for many years and actively sought to conceal its wrongdoing from its many victims of intrusion. More than 70 claims have now been settled and many more are being brought.
That report was from Clive Coleman.
Alan Smith, thank you.
For weeks, President Trump and his team have denied that he paid off the porn star Stormy Daniels to buy her silence over an alleged affair. Now his legal aide, the former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, has said he did pay the money via his lawyer. In the last hour, President Trump has been tweeting to say that no campaign money was involved and that the non-disclosure agreement she signed in exchange for the money is in full force and effect and will be used for damages against her. He also tweeted the agreement was used to stop the false and extortionist accusations made by her about an affair. When I spoke to The Economist's Washington bureau chief David Rennie to try to unpick these complicated legal threads.
Donald Trump has been sort of chopping and changing his legal team for a while, and we suddenly had this news that he was going to hire the pugnacious former New York mayor, who was himself a pugnacious lawyer in his day, and he was going to be the safe pair of hands, the grown-up, the household name, who was going to kind of set the legal team to rights. He then goes on Fox News television onto a show hosted by Sean Hannity, who's probably the most loyal presenter to Donald Trump on Fox News, which is already very loyal to Donald Trump. So this should have been a safe space